Hey, I'm here with Ben McPhee, the brand manager at YoYoFactory. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm fantastic. And how are you?
I'm good. You are at the YoYoFactory headquarters?
Yeah, in Arizona, it's a balmy 109 degrees outside today.
109.
That's it's nice. I've been working in the warehouse today, so yeah, I'm feeling it.
You're feeling it. Well, Ben, how long have you been how old is YoYoFactory?
Good question. I can never answer this. 2000 and Doc, when did you move to California?
Like 2002, 2001?
Yeah, around the same
Around
time.
that same time. Right
Yeah,
on.
maybe it was like no. I think Yo-Yo Factory released its first yo-yos in like 2001. Yeah, that'd be
The
about right.
the fast?
Yeah.
No, there must have been a yo-yo before the fast. You don't start with a plastic injection molded yo-yo.
Yeah, we did. So we couldn't pay for it. So what we actually did was we thought we'd be really clever and we'd make a run of 200 metal yo-yos to play for the tooling, which was the Fast 301. But somewhere along the way that we kind of did things out of order because the metal yo-yo required the plastic parts, so we had to buy the tooling anyway. So it was all happening at the same time.
So now you've got two problems. Now you've got
Yeah, and then two
injection
problems.
molding and
Spent twice as much money, but no, it all worked out. We had some friends who owned stores that we'd worked with previously who basically said, if you're going to do this yo-yo, we'll buy this many pieces, so you can afford to do it. Get into it.
how did you get into yo-yoing?
I was exposed to yo-yos since I was a small child. In like 1984, the Coca-Cola yo-yo demonstrators came to my school in Australia and did their yo-yo performance, and every kid wanted a yo-yo. And I went to the corner store and bought myself a Sprite Russell Sprite Super, and that was that. I had my first yo-yo, and I didn't play with it obviously my whole life. It sat in a toy box, and it was many years later that I went back and I was like studying for something at school, and I didn't really want to study for school, so I went and found this yo-yo and I started playing with it. Of course, I didn't know any tricks, so I was trying to find old people because old people obviously knew how to use a yo-yo.
And you mentioned older people yo-yoing. I remember that was the apocryphal story is that Duncan would have a pro go to a town once every 4 years, so that you would totally like get everybody of a certain age would buy yo-yos, and then the fad would sort of go away. And then when the next generation of kids came around who were too young to buy yo-yos the first time, when they got a yo-yo, their older siblings could help teach them, like, oh yeah, that thing.
This is agrarian farming. You plant the crop, you harvest the crop, and then you let the crop lay fallow. And I think one of the techniques that was really good and effective in making sure that nobody played yo-yo in the interim was you couldn't get yo-yo string. So if you were really into yo-yo, you were going to use up every string you could find, and you couldn't play anymore until the next promotion came around. And like Duncan were doing it in the US, but in most of the world, it was Russell that was doing exactly the same thing. So in Australia, it was like 76, 78, 83, 84, 88 were the yo-yo promotions through that era.
I have this theory that we were going towards more and more competition shaped yo-yos, which are the V-shaped, hard angles, very stiff shapes. And during the pandemic, because of lack of contests, we saw a rise of organics and lightweights and weird materials and stuff like that. So that's my theory, and I want to hear, what have you experienced?
Yeah, I go a couple of ways with it, and because you can never look at any isolated thing. We've always made weird yo-yos, whether it be mighty fleas or just random stupid things that we wanted to see exist in the universe. Um, but the success of those random items was always something that was always questionable. Every year we'd have a project that was called Hans's Folly. And whatever Hans's Folly is, I didn't care if it sold, we'd do it. We did a stainless steel whistling yo-yo. Well, there's a huge market for them out there, I'll tell you that. We did a replica of the original Flores yo-yo. Well, there's a huge market out there for that one too. I'll tell you that. So whatever we wanted to see exist in yo-yos, we would still create. And it there wasn't that many brands active in yo-yo at the time, so the fact that we were doing different often worked well for us. But I would definitely say last year, more people started doing different. There was an increase in alternative designs, but to be fair, it may have started a year or two before that. Um, people started utilizing Chinese manufacturing to make weird and wacky rather than trying to make better cheaper.
Hmm.
And that was something that certainly hadn't existed. There wasn't multiple brands making weird yo-yos. Everybody was still trying to be the best and do the best. And as much as I'd like to say that the pandemic ratcheted that up, at the start of the pandemic period, I think a lot of the smaller brands contracted and disappeared. So there was actually less diversity. Like I'm talking like March, April, May, June, like pretty much all the way through summer last year. There was very few brands releasing yo-yos.
Hmm.
I see now it's turned around and there's a lot more yo-yos coming back into the market. And I guess now you're seeing the influence of that time and yeah, people coming in with alternate designs. We had a very interesting you basically didn't know, was there going to be an industry next month?
Hmm.
Like, was the whole world going to collapse? Were all the supply chains going to totally evaporate? Would there be Chinese yo-yos available, or would the only thing be available in 3 months' time be made in the US? These were all real scenarios that we were processing. We lost all of our store, like brick and mortar store orders.
Hmm.
Like we had packages sent to stores in California, and the stores would just turn around and send them back. They'd be like, "Well, we can't take it now. We're closed. We don't want any product." We had
Yeah.
chain stores canceling, $30,000 to $50,000 orders. So we had to look at what products do we have, what do we need to sell, and how do we even stay in business right now, because this is going to get rocky real fast.
Hmm.
So we leaned in on the yo-yo community, and knowing that yo-yoers are out there, they're bored, they need something to do, and we can still deliver like fantastic value and different play experiences. And I think now you're seeing a lot more brands falling into line with that, offering cooler, unique playing experiences. As a trick creator of renown, do you subscribe to the theory that different yo-yos offer you a different perspective and
Oh, hell
potentially?
yeah. Dude, I can change string. Like, I've been going shorter and shorter string just for some reason. I just kind of have been ebbing towards it. And every now and then, like, I'll be at be somewhere and I'll like grab a long string and I'll be like, what the hell is this? And all of a sudden it's like a whole new toy.
I feel bad, and people criticize me openly about the fact that I'm like, you get a new yo-yo, you're going to get a different perspective on your tricks. I see a lot more people are creating different perspectives, and I see yo-yos now that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I actually want to go buy that yo-yo. I mean, I didn't buy yo-yos for years,
Hmm.
and now I see yo-yos that I'm like, but you know what? If there was a Bolt Part 3 with a new song, I'd be after that.
So you talked about supply issues, supply chain issues, and I ordered some yo-yos in December from China, and they just arrived last week. So that's 6.5 months. And I ordered some other yo-yos from One Drop that, because of supply, I'm not trash talking One Drop, but they were like a 4 or 5 month wait, which is way longer than usual. It feels like all across the board things are delayed, or there's just these weird snags that you don't expect. As someone who's got a shop, like y'all have a shop, have you, and you also order yo-yos overseas as well. Like,
Yeah.
what have you kind of experienced, and what have been the lucky bits of owning a shop versus overseas ordering?
When it looked like the world was falling apart, we definitely lent into what we do best. And what we do best is we design yo-yos, and we make yo-yos and we put them together, and we do every step possible. So we went back to machine shops that we'd worked with forever, since we were making yo-yos without what I would say modern bearing seats. And we still had the same contacts there, and the same people are still running the machines. And we even found like a machine that we almost exclusively used was open for like the rest of the year. So we said, okay, we want that machine to make yo-yos again. Set it up. We'll keep it busy for the rest of the year. And he's like, okay, great. And we didn't have any problem getting made in the US aluminum at all. We could get it from 2 different vendors at all times.
And you were saying that you didn't run into any supply chain like I was running into left and right.
The supply of aluminum in the US was still disrupted since the year before, when there was tariffs in place. So all that had already, because people who were using imported aluminum all of a sudden needed the domestic supply. So the domestic supply was all sucked up. So nobody could get hold of the domestic supply. But yeah, and the production had not caught up with it. And then just when they were catching up with it, the tariffs disappeared. The imported aluminum started coming back, but then that supply chain was getting disrupted because of COVID. But no, we didn't have any problems with material. So for us, if things had gone differently and we needed to be 100% made in the US product by now, we could have done it. It would have been, and we were up for the challenge, and we're really excited about that's what we would have needed to do. But we also work with like many different vendors in China. So while the delivery times overall started getting out, it wasn't ever that bad. Somebody was always delivering, and as long as we had enough orders in, it just seemed that product would continue to turn up.
So let's talk about, we talked about how COVID definitely messed up things, or I mean, if we didn't, it's obvious that, yo-yo contests got canceled, meetups were not happening. It was hard to be able to hang out and share tricks with people.
Yeah, but there was some other interesting things that happened through the year. A lot of older yo-yo players, like who you hadn't seen or heard of for a very long time, started playing yo-yo again. Yeah. Like I was seeing names show up on orders, and I'll be like, "Oh, damn! They're still alive. They're playing yo-yo again. Let me. I'm throwing in extras here." Like, so there was a lot of classic players and people who maybe hadn't played yo-yo since even like late '90s, who decided, "Hey, I've got a lot of time on my hand here. I'm going to get back into yo-yo." And you would see it on Reddit. People would be like, "Oh, I haven't played yo-yo forever. What yo-yo should I get?" Mm-hmm. So there was a whole wave of new yo-yo players coming in, and those yo-yo players weren't getting influenced by the new releases being as competitive, and they were just finding yo-yos that they enjoyed playing with. So it's going to be very interesting when the competitive scene does come back. Who's going to be participating? Like, because I'm sure during a break like this, you're going to see a whole wave of players drop off. Mm-hmm. And of the new players that have come into yo-yo, how many of them will even be interested in competing?
That's going to be interesting, the long-term effects of yo-yoing in competitions. I mean, first we have to get to the point where we all feel kind of comfortable getting back up to competitions, which in yo-yoing seems like it might be near the end of this year or early next year. It sort of feels like some competitions are getting announced. Yeah. People are trying to get me to travel, and I'm not ready for that. Even to go down to LA right now, I'm just like, that seems unnecessary. Like, I'll wait, a couple more months hopefully, and things get better.
I'm not sure when I'll get on a plane. That'll be the big.
Yeah.
It's because I think people have forgotten how to behave too out there. It's wild again.
Mm-hmm. During the pandemic, we've heard from folks who are getting into it. You mentioned old players kind of coming back into it, old competition players who are younger, now they're adults, and they're like, oh, this is a great time to get back into yo-yoing. I've seen a wave of new yo-yoers, especially around November, December last year. For some reason, they got into it, and some of them really got into the collecting of yo-yos. And like really premium yo-yos. Others really got into the responsive stuff. And it's hard to say if like I could create a story right now that like, all these people who had a lot of time and a lot of creative energy they needed to get out, found this nice, relaxing, responsive, modern responsive yo-yo stuff, and that just really appealed to them. But probably this is groundwork laid from the years before, whatever. There probably was kind of like a trend of people kind of wanting to get into that.
Yeah, it's funny. I think it was always an underserviced segment of the market, like a good, what was the nicest responsive yo-yo you could buy? The releases would happen, but they wouldn't always be in stock. There wasn't one that you could say, hey, that's the one, go buy that one, and trust that it would be in stock. But we've seen waves like this, even when metal yo-yos first came onto the market, right? And if you wanted a metal yo-yo, you had to buy the metal yo-yo that was available at that time, because it might not be there in a month, and there might not be any, because there were periods like there would be a pyro release, and then there'd be no metal yo-yos available after that. And you just have to wait until the next metal yo-yo was released. So it was timing kind of thing. And I think that with responsive metal yo-yos, it's kind of been the same thing. One Drop have done a pretty good job at keeping a consistent supply in the market, but even that, models go in and out of availability. So people haven't been able to say, oh, go get that one. It's there, and it's been there, and it's always going to be there. And yeah, so I think that's something to limit it. And I mean, even now, like a lot of people exclusively shop on Amazon online. What's the best responsive metal yo-yo on Amazon?
Yeah, what are those Aota ones or something, right? They have
I don't know. I don't even know, and
Yeah.
I wouldn't say anything that Aota made was good. So, but yeah, it's not an answer. It's not an answer that can just rolls off the tongue. So
Yeah, I don't know what it is.
yeah, as responsive metal yo-yoing like grows in popularity, I think that there's going to be some more standards that go into the market. This is the Confusion.
The Confusion. I heard good things about the Confusion, and based on the Gold Fusion.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, Doc. I can't say that. All right.
You can say whatever. You can say whatever you want. I just can't say that I know anything about it.
Final question for me is, I have a feeling that you might have been into yo-yoing this whole time, but during the pandemic, you might have dived into it a little more, kind of re-explored it in a new way. I'm just kind of wondering what your favorite trick is you've learned during the pandemic.
During the pandemic, this is tough because I've gone inwards more than outwards, and I just seem to do the same stuff weirder and weirder. Like I just work on the same tricks that I always did, but I don't know. I've had more fun doing them. I haven't really learned a lot of new tricks, and now that I look back at that, I'm feeling a little limited, and I really should start learning some more tricks.
I kept meaning to learn kick flips. That's the thing. I was gonna I'm gonna finally learn how to do this because this is like a fundamental part of modern responsive yo-yoing.
Yeah.
And I just don't practice it, and I can't do them consistently.
I've learned how to do them, and the one that I really enjoyed is from the bird's nest catch, when you go forwards over your finger and then you pull it into like another fake trapeze.
Yeah.
Yeah, I learned how to do that.
Yeah.
That was something that I did learn how to do. Yeah, it's. I was wondering if we were gonna touch on it, but different styles of yo-yoing. So like in May we had the 5A patent expire, but I didn't see a growth in 5A.
Really?
I hope there would be I hope that it would take off, and I hope that there would be more brands bringing out 5A product and aiming at 5A players. And I saw, there was some cool stuff coming out, like 3D printed counterweights and stuff like that, but there wasn't any like significant investment in a new counterweights in any volumes. There's very, very few new yo-yos shipping with counterweights. I was hoping that would explode, and maybe I misread that. Um, I think I've learned that foray really is contest driven.
Yeah.
And as a style, I think it's been one of the most hurt by the lack of contests, because I think people get inspired to play foray. Like if you're at a contest and you see a great foray routine, you'll be like, oh man, that was rad. I want to learn that trick. But I haven't seen any like, flow foray videos that have made me go, oh, I really need to learn that trick. So I feel it kind of stagnated. I think a bunch of people got into two-way, and then they realized how hard it actually is, because that seems to happen in waves.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I kind of expected there'd be more growth in the non 1A divisions, like in participation, and it'll be interesting to see if that shakes out when it comes back to contest season. But I'm not holding my breath on a huge increase in competitors in those kind of divisions, especially in the US. Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for my questions. I guess one last question is if people want to follow like what YoYoFactory is doing. I think you're doing live streams now. Is that the best way to kind of keep in touch?
Yeah. So it's funny, during the pandemic we were doing live daily, and we got to know a lot of our customers like really well through like daily interactions, because they were out there stuck at home. We were operating on a less than full schedule here, so we had a lot of time to give. But we've just started doing live every Friday on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So we're serving it up on every platform, and we're looking to cover the online world yo-yo contest. And we're in talks with them to make sure that we get all the content that we can share in a timely manner, because that could be a fun event.
That's the first year. It's Heroes contest. I think.
Yeah, it's the what are they? IYYF. So the IYYF absorbed all the financial responsibility for Worlds in Budapest to make sure that nobody got, left holding the basket, owing a lot of money. Yeah. So they covered all the expenses on that. And this contest is they've one of the things when they've gone to brands saying, hey, we're running this contest, we'd like your support. I know that the money made for this contest is going to offset the losses from that contest that didn't occur. Mm-hmm. So it's a good cause, and it's a great opportunity for competitive players to keep the knife sharp, get ready for upcoming contests in the future. So it'll be very interesting to see who turns up and who actually turns up in terms of competing. And if culturally American players have taken their foot off the practice gas, we could see some, a decade of world champions from countries like Korea and Southeast Asia, and maybe even another European world champion, just because in those countries their community has stayed tighter and closer together and kept a competitive angle to their yo-yoing.
Yeah, that's cool. It's a cool prediction. I remember hanging out with Steve Brown at an event in Chicago in January of 2020. And I was showing them this modern responsive freehand stuff I was doing, or counterweight stuff I was doing. And I told him I'm going to start competing again. And just not the best year to to make that. Like, I was working really hard. I was practicing. I had this whole new, routine I was kind of working on, and just, nope.
I snuck one in. I actually got to compete in 2020. I competed at PNWR, but it was unfortunate. They'd squashed the 2A division into an X division, and while I was the highest placed 2A in 2A, I didn't win anything. I was just the highest placed 2A player. So, but at least I got to throw in a contest in 2020, and a lot of people didn't get that opportunity. So I feel pretty lucky.
Yeah. Well, Ben, thanks so much for hanging out, talking with me, and telling me what's going on, and sharing some insight on what it's been like for y'all during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks a lot, Tom.
keep up the weekly videos. Those are fun to watch, and yeah, thanks for your time.
No worries.